welcome to the Monday evening.
Ball like I do after dark. It's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Welcome to the Field of 68 after dark on this Tuesday night, February 18th, 2025. I'm John Fanta. We've got Terrence Oglesby. We've got Mike LaTulip. I'm surrounded by a couple of guys who know how to get some buckets, and we're going to have a lot on tonight's show. We are waiting momentarily on Wisconsin star John Tonje. The Badgers are 21-5. We'll also talk about UConn tonight in a critical game against Villanova. What would happen in Hartford? Liam McNeely had something to say about that. Plus, Bill Self, worst loss ever? Really? We'll get to that and more. We begin in the Big Ten. Wisconsin 95, Illinois 74. For the Illini, this is another tough loss. They're 9-8. They're obviously shorthanded in the loss of Morris Johnson. Brutal for Illinois. Visage battling an illness. Needless to say, Wisconsin rolls. Blowout fashion. John Tonje has 63 points in his last two games. Mike LaTulip, your reaction from a Badgers, what ended up being blowout win?
Yeah, they just continue to do what they've done over the last few years, really. I mean, like the evolution of Wisconsin basketball is notable. I remember my freshman year, we're doing the scout for Wisconsin. This would have been the 2012-2013 season. And everybody kept talking about, well, they want the game in the 50s and 60s. They want the game in the 50s and 60s. And then we're on the bus back, and I'm like, they just hung 95 on us. And that felt like the start with Frank Kaminsky and with those guys. And then when Guard takes over, just kind of ushering in and modernizing their offensive game a bit and getting a bit more athletic and not having that tic-tac-toe type of swing offense and going more, hey, we're going to put three handlers and advantage creators on the floor, and we're going to deck you, and we're going to attack mismatches. And they've had that grouping over the years where they've had, it's Davison and it's Hepburn and it's Davis and it's Hepburn last year and Storr and Klesmit. And this particular grouping with Blackwell, with Klesmit, and with Tonje is just, I mean, what do you do with the shooting around them? And then tonight, a team that doesn't rebound it particularly well gets after it on the offensive glass and creates more opportunities for that high-powered offense that they have. So it's been awesome to see this program grow, and they've always been good, but just doing it in a different way and adjusting to the style of basketball that we now see in 2025. And man, they got a dude in Tonje that they can make a run at this conference. I mean, we'll see what happens with Michigan State here coming up this weekend. But I mean, don't look now. They're a game back. If Michigan ends up losing that game, a game back, and have by far the easiest schedule out of all the contending teams at the top of the Big Ten.
The biggest thing that sticks out to me, you talked about the evolution of their offense. The biggest thing that I saw today especially was that initial push, the first 6 to 7 seconds of each possession. That, to me, like, that's the biggest difference I've seen from even the last 3-4 years. You go back and they've had shot creators, Chucky Hepburn, but a lot of times, I don't know, it might have just been the games I watched, but it seemed like they walked the ball up the floor and they were hoping to create an advantage in the mid-teens and then hopefully the ball moved around. Credit to Greg Gard. He's letting those guys figure it out at the beginning of the possession. And there was a couple possessions. John Blackwell gets the ball up to right 45 and is pushing it. It's the first side of the offense. This is sacrilege under Bo Ryan. However, the first side of the offense, he's able to create advantage right away, a first person touching the ball on the first side of the floor. And what's ended up happening is it just starts that chain of reaction quickly, and then they're able to find something. That being said, with so much space on the floor and so much different shooting, like It's just they're able to create these shots. And not to mention the fact that I think Stephen Crowell, one of his best strengths is the fact that he's a phenomenal screener. And a thing that John Tonje has in his bag that we knew he had in his bag was his ability to run away and shoot. He hit a couple of shots and he's on such good balance. He might as well just been sitting there by himself. So their ability to play within structure and then also break it down for the first 6 seconds of the clock was something that really stood out to me in how well and how sharp they passed the ball. And I come back to this all the time, guys, but like the skill of just passing and catching is so crucial. Any team that stumbles, any team that holds it for a half second, you could see it today. Illinois struggled with that. Will Riley doesn't like passing the ball. And that was readily evident. And I'm not sure that he doesn't like it or he wasn't confident enough to just let the ball go, to let the offense work for Illinois. But it was kind of like one well-oiled machine and one team that was struggling with the clutch. That's what it looked like to me when these two teams were playing.
Yeah, it sure did. And I think that Mike, not only are they one of the nation's best offenses, but let's not forget about who they are defensively. They're still a top 40 unit on that end of the floor. And I thought tonight they turned Kasparas Yakuchonis over 7 times. I think we're seeing a freshman in the Big Ten having to go through some of that. But they're switchable. They're versatile. They've got length. They can guard as well. It's not just a tremendous offensive team. When they're engaged, Mike LaTulip, on the defensive end of the floor, and they're able to contain dribble penetration, they become that much more dangerous because a couple times tonight, they're able to force some turnovers. They forced 14 of them. You're giving that type of offense 14 giveaways? You could say goodnight.
Well, I mean, we talked about the evolution of Wisconsin's offense. What hasn't changed for Wisconsin is their discipline. And that's defensively as well. I mean, just being assignment sound, understanding, hey, Kasparas Yakuchonis, I'd say 75% of his turnovers this year have been trying to thread gaps that aren't there. And they loaded up, they plugged the gaps tonight. They said, hey, this is an Illinois team that's been struggling to shoot the ball from the outside. Prove it to us. Prove it to us tonight. We're going to shrink these gaps and then you turn those stops and those turnovers into what you're talking about, T.O., and getting out in transition, which, I mean, I think they're close to 11 transition points per game this year, which is the most they've had, I think, ever. Seriously, like I think ever. And to your point again, T.O., like what is the best time to create an advantage and attack? It's when it's in space and in transition. And I think that's what Gard understands too about this team is we got a really good free throw shooting team, the best potentially ever, depending how they finish out this season. So why wouldn't we attack in as much space as possible? I mean, that's when the defense is the most spread out. Some of the defenses, may not have their matchups, and you can go and attack those. So it all ties together for this Wisconsin team, and it's a big reason why. I mean, they're just another team here in the Big Ten. I know there's a lot of talk about the SEC, but this is another team that I think can really go far because they just oftentimes they just don't beat themselves.
From your experience dealing in the Big Ten, is this the best team they've had since the Kaminsky unit?
Since the Kaminsky unit, yeah. I mean, the Kaminsky unit was crazy. I mean, we played against them my junior year, and it was like, what the hell do you do? I mean, they shooting everywhere. Sam Decker was a complete mismatch. They threw it in the high post with Kaminsky. He could face up. He could step out. But they also didn't play with this type of pace. And they honestly probably could have. But they didn't. I mean, with Koenig and Trayvon Jackson in the backcourt, that was a really, really good unit. But this is the best. This is the best since then, I think.
All right, let's turn to Illinois because now you're 9-8 in the Big Ten. You talked about Yakuchonis. So I'm going to stick with Mike LaTulip on this, and then T.O., you're going to give your take on this. Mike, what is wrong with the Illini?
I mean, it's a loaded question at this point. I mean, from what we saw in early January to now, I mean, it is staggering to see the regression, but at the same time, it's such a young team. And I think, and T.O., you can probably attest to this just from your time at Clemson. At least I'm a firm believer in this. When you lose your collective confidence as a unit, your defense and your rebounding go first, because that's when you become reactionary. Like everything becomes reactionary because you're not confident in your movements. You're not confident in what you're trying to do, especially on the defensive end. And that's what we saw tonight, was just a bit of a letting go of the rope. And I think too, I mean, when Illinois was really rolling, Kasper Siakashonis was really, really good. And it's even for a guy that's going to be a lottery pick this year in college basketball as a freshman, it's a lot of responsibility on your shoulders to manage a team. It just is. I mean, you can't just go in and worry about yourself. And at the end of the Michigan State game, when they didn't score in the last 8.5 minutes, I thought he became really frantic and was rushing shots. And that seeps into the rest of your team when you're the engine and when you're the point guard. So,
and you're the only dude who can pass the freaking ball. You're the only guy who can pass it. Like watch it. So if I'm playing against KJ, like this is what I'm doing. I'm getting my quickest guard and I'm getting up underneath him and I'm sitting in the gaps. Because his first instinct as a young point guard is to put his head down and try to get past. Like that's just, he's always had his way. He's been a great player on the youth levels in Europe for a long time. He's always had his way because he's bigger, he's more physical, he can get past. The problem is people are just sitting there in his lap when he does get past. And then if they take him away, that completely inhibits everything Illinois is doing in the half court. Because Will Riley's looking to score. Other guard, right wing, he shot like 4 on the right wing, 15 feet. Yeah, him. It's just like they don't let go of the basketball. And keep in mind too, not having that consistency because guys are out. Ivisic has been in and out. Moraz is hurt. Like the consistency hurts young players more than it does older players. Because there's certain guys and certain pressure points that you look to as a young guy, and you're much quicker to get to that thing than you are some of these other ones. And when you get used to something, it's hard to adjust, and it takes a little bit longer for younger players to do that. No?
Is it salvageable?
Well, I mean, go ahead. I mean, well, look, here's the thing. I mean, just going off of Tio's point there, I talked about the collective confidence of the group, and I feel like a lot of times you can gain confidence as players and as a unit when there's predictability in roles. And if there's not predictability in roles and lineups vacillate and guys are in and out, like you're saying, Tio, like that can really have an impact on, I think, the psyche of a young team. And when you have that collective confidence diminish, really good teams like Wisconsin, really good teams like Michigan State, really good teams like Michigan and Purdue, and these teams that are at the top of the Big Ten, that's blood in the water. I mean, it's you know, guys on the other side are more confident shooting it, more confident going through your chest, finishing around the rim, more confident crashing the offensive glass. Like it starts to spiral. So that's the mental battle of conference play, and it's the introduction of conference play for young players. So it's a mixed bag right now for this Illini team. And to your question, Fanta, is it salvageable? I think it is, but you're going to have to find some continuity. The only issue is the schedule's not very forgiving here coming up. I mean, if there's ever a get right game, I'm not sure it's on Saturday against one of the best teams in the country in Duke, and a team that, you know, is going to try to bottle you up defensively and not try to get things going. They're going to be in gaps. And even when you get through a gap, there's Malawach down there. I know Malik Brown's out. You know, that is a game that is a cut it loose game. Is it not? I mean, it is a complete and total cut it loose game on Saturday for Illinois.
Yeah, for sure. We got to move on here. We're going to have John Tonje in about 7 to 10 minutes, and we want to break before we get that interview in. So let's transition to what happened in East Lansing tonight, because there's another 21-5 team in the Big Ten. And tonight, they moved to 12-3, just a half game back of first place Michigan. And it is the Michigan State Spartans, who Terrence Oglesby said in the preseason they were going to exceed expectations. They were going to prove doubters wrong. Tonight, 75-66, they beat Purdue. T.O., Michigan State did not have anybody score more than 12 points in this win. But they had 8 players with at least 7 points. What do you make of what Tom Izzo has authored with this club?
It might be his best work. It might be his best work in a career full of them, of great performances and coaching performances. It just very well may be his best work. Who's the pro? Cohen Carr is going to have a chance because of the athleticism, the 0.001% athleticism. Jeremy Fears is small. Jaden Akins is fine, but he was 3 of 8 today. Who's the pro? Jace Richardson? Might be. But, like, it's unbelievable to see what they've been able to accomplish. How about this? In the year of our Lord, 2025, they took 13 threes and beat Purdue. 13 threes and beat Purdue. They're tougher than you. That's what it comes down to. Now, guys, I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to sit here. I'm not going to lie to you, and I'm not going to lie to the world. I'm not going to lie to America. I'm not buying Peacock. It's not happening. I didn't watch the game. So I'm going off stats right now. But what I'm imagining, and I'm going to let you guys tell me, what I'm imagining is they switched up matchups on Braden Smith. They threw a bunch of different bodies on him. Am I correct in saying so?
Yeah.
You guys don't have Peacock either. You guys don't have Peacock either. This shit's phenomenal.
I'm letting you have your
has
moment,
Peacock.
man.
How expensive is Peacock? It's too expensive for me.
I do.
That's for damn sure. But this is what I'm imagining. They switched up a bunch of matchups, and they were just tougher, more physical. They moved the basketball, and Xavier Booker still can't get right. And they're still winning games. But the continuity of the guards, the guys understand how to play. They're playing together, and they're unselfish. Michigan State, I picked them at the beginning because I like the continuity plus the guards. I thought Jaden Akins was going to take a step. He has. Boom. There you go.
Yeah, look, at the end of last season, Tom Izzo stood in the hallway in the NCAA tournament and was like, this is not happening again. I don't want this feeling again. We're not going to be mediocre again. And the crazy part about it is he didn't overhaul what he was doing and say, hey, I'm going to go out into the portal and just, flip this roster and NIL the hell out of these guys. He said, I'm going to double down and we're just going to bet on continuity. And damn it, it's worked. And it's amazing because we see all these teams who try in February. We're watching Illinois right now, or we just watched Illinois, but like all these different teams that are like, hey, in this expedited 35 game season we have, like it's a race to find your identity. Michigan State had that in the second game of the year and then just continued to build on it. So, I mean, tonight that looked like February in Breslin. That's what it did. Yeah, that's what it looked like. The players, the staff, the crowd. I mean, I think everybody knew what's at stake, and it's getting Michigan State back to the top of the conference, which was something that when I was at Illinois, I was definitely used to seeing them up at the top, and they haven't been bottom feeders at all, but just it's not what we're used to with this type of group. And tonight, nothing was comfortable for Purdue. No. I thought Michigan State did a fantastic job of making Braden play in close quarters. I mean, everything, like we're not going to let you snake ball screens all night. We're not going to let you, play 2-man game and get those short rolls with Trey Kaufman-Renn. And then, you just like they're so consistent with their pace that no matter the personnel grouping, you send too many to the glass, you better get it. You turn the ball over, you're done. They're going to get out in transition. The issue for Purdue tonight too was they turned the ball over 12 times, which isn't bad, right? That's not awful. But after the Trey Kaufman-Renn moving screen to start the game, there were 10 live ball turnovers after that. And that's what got Michigan State going. So unbelievable effort, way to get back in it tonight. And they can smell it, man. They can smell it.
You're right. And when you look at the numbers in this game, Purdue took 47 shots. 26 of them came from Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn. Michigan State said defensively, we are taking away everybody outside in those two. We know that Braden Smith and TKR are going to get theirs to a degree, but they made it hard for Smith to get his. You're exactly right, Mike. They made him uncomfortable when he was on offense, and it's really hard to do that. How many times do you see Braden Smith actually become uncomfortable in a game? It doesn't happen. He's as good as any guard in the sport.
Real quick, too, and then we'll obviously get to break, but Michigan State, I mean, this is why when you play your ass off, you can overcome a lot. I mean, Braden Smith is on the wing, and, I think it was Miles Colvin or CJ Cox drove into the middle of the paint, and Cohen Carr ran at the ball off of Braden Smith, which is, 40% career three-point shooter. You don't do that, but you only do that if you know that Trey Holloman's got your back. and is going to stunt and not allow Braden to get a shot off. I mean, that's what Michigan State has been about this whole entire season on defensive end.
We got to break John Tonje, Wisconsin star. 63 points last 2 games. One of the best players in the country right now. He joins us next.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. College basketball fans, are you ready to take your hoops game to a new level? Whether you're a seasoned bettor or just trying to win your March Madness office pool, Rhythm is here to give you the edge this season. With data-driven predictions for every single college basketball game left on the schedule, Rhythm helps you maximize your bets. And as March Madness kicks off, Rhythm's insights will help you spot those plucky Cinderellas that you know are going to shake up the NCAA tournament. But that's not all. When Selection Sunday rolls around, let Rhythm's AI-powered bracket generator do the heavy lifting for you. This is the same AI tool that performed 35% better than the average ESPN bracket last year. And here's the best part. Rhythm pairs perfectly with our Field of 68 expert analysis, giving you the 1-2 punch that you need for the rest of the college basketball season. So don't wait. Download Rhythm today and get ready to see college basketball and your betting results in a whole new light.
Nobody in America is playing better basketball right now than John Tonje of the Wisconsin Badgers, and the superstar joins us from Madison now. Wisconsin improves to 21-5 overall and 11-4 in the Big Ten with a 95-74 win over the Illini. Tonje now with 63 points in his last 2 games. John, congratulations on another win. You guys are red hot, having won 5 in a row. What kind of a zone are you in right now when you're letting the ball fly to be able to score 60-plus combined the last 2 games, man?
Yeah, I think I'm just having fun. I love being a part of this team, and it's just I'm excited to show up every day with my teammates and coaches and encourage each other and keep getting better day by day. And I think it's just really just a product of that.
Yeah, John, heck of a game tonight, man, and congrats on the win. Hey, you mentioned having fun. Obviously, last season probably not the most fun you've ever had there at Mizzou. I want to talk about your role on this team a bit, because even previously, definite success at Colorado State, but playing alongside Isaiah Stevens, he's taken a lot of that workload and ball handling duties, offensively for Colorado State. At what point when you arrived in Madison did you kind of look around and say, you know what, like I can shoulder the main responsibilities here for this Badgers team?
I have high expectations for myself, but it's really just a process. I knew it was going to take a little bit of time just to keep getting better and just look at it from a day-to-day perspective rather than looking at, long term. So just trying to get better, a little bit better each day. And I think, I'm turning the corner right now.
John, I got one for you. On January 18th, you played Southern Cal and you didn't score. Was there a come to Jesus moment? Was there something that happened after that game? Because since that game, my man, you've been killing it. Is there something that clicked in your head? Was it a different approach to the game? Was it something that happened during the game that you thought, hey, I can exploit this, and this is what I'm really good at? What has happened since that game came to?
Yeah, I think it was exactly that. It was really a come to Jesus moment. I think I was just kind of taking things for granted, and there's things I needed to get better at. And I think I just needed to be more grateful each day and just have more fun with it. It's a blessing to be, in the position I'm in. And I really just wanted to take advantage of that and not let a single day pass by. And I think now I'm just approaching it with joy and just knowing that God has blessed me beyond belief. And I'm just so happy to be here.
What was the thing though? because I'm sitting here, I'm looking. You went 0-3 and then 0-2 from 3. And the next game you go 6-7. It was a loss, but you go 6-7 from 3. The following game you hit 5 threes. The next one after that, 5 threes. The next one after that, 5 threes. Was it coming off pin downs? Was it just relaxing your shoulders? Was there, because your balance, and these guys can attest, like your balance when you play now in your 6th year or 7th year of college hoops is elite. You come off down screens and you're always straight up and down. Was it kind of re-examining those things? Well, if you had to pinpoint one thing about your game, what was it that's just changed or something you focused on a little bit more?
I think just not rushing my shot. Just making sure that my reps off the court or outside of the game are the same as in the game. So, just focusing on before practice work, after practice work, and just trusting it when it comes time to shoot those in the game is really what I've been focused on.
Yeah, John, obviously I'm sure you look at the standings every now and then, at the Big Ten standings. I mean, you guys are within striking distance of the Big Ten title. Obviously, you need a few things to happen above you, but how much of that is in your guys' mind, and how much of that, I guess, is on your mind as you hit this final stretch here of the regular season?
It's big for us. I mean, we got it hanging up here. They've got a live board that updates every day. So I think me and the guys are up here looking at it each day and seeing that there's a possibility to keep making our way up there, and just day by day, just trying to do everything we can to keep climbing.
Your father, Gene, correct? Dad's first name? Mm-hmm. He is a native of Cameroon, played soccer for the Cameroon national team. And I understand your mother is a pastor. Yeah. Tell us what kind of influences and inspirations your parents have been in your life journey.
They've been huge. They both taught me humility and working hard, but they never put a ball in my hands. Basketball came to me at recess, elementary school. Wow. Inner city, none of the kids are playing soccer, which was my first sport. So I just picked up basketball and fell in love with it, and just wanted to be better than the next guy, and wanted to not be picked last like how I was at the beginning. I kept moving up the rankings, and I really just fell in love with it.
So here's the problem. Here's the thing with that. I was picked last, and then nothing really changed. So I give you a lot of credit. You really moved up the ladder there. It's very impressive. Now, I was always wondering what the formula for that recess pick'em was, because typically I was in the back end of the draft. I was Mr. Irrelevant after lunchtime. So,
the soccer makes sense, though. The soccer makes sense. The balance, the footwork. That's. I can't say I'm shocked that you were a really good soccer player.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I was bigger and stronger than some of the kids, so I was pretty good at soccer. But yeah, like I said, I mean, basketball, talks in Omaha. So, I fell in love with it and started going to the park by myself and just shooting for hours and hours and going straight to the gym. And my mom was always super, supportive of everything, taking me to tournaments and doing everything she can just to encourage it, even though she doesn't know anything about basketball. Even this day, she doesn't know too much about basketball. She's just in there. She has the most to say out of all the parents. She's the loudest in our section, but she doesn't know too much basketball, which is interesting.
Well, John, we're rooting for you, man. We love your story. We love what you're doing. It's special to see you just dominating these games and shining for the Badgers. But last one from us before we let you go. What can this Wisconsin team accomplish?
Man, I think the sky's the limit. I believe in every one of these guys here, and I don't like to do too much talking, but I feel like the sky's the limit for us.
Yeah, it sure looks like it, John. Good luck the rest of the season. Good luck in this Big Ten title race. And thanks for joining us tonight on After Dark.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, fellas.
Thanks, John.
All right, that's John Tonje joining us from Madison. Very impressive young man as Wisconsin is.
You were picked last after lunchtime? Last after lunchtime?
Yeah, sometimes second or third to last if I had a good defensive game plan or could go zone, like sometimes for my intensity, yeah. That's for a different conversation. Let's turn to you would have thought I was playing for this team tonight. Final score from Provo. This is jarring. And I want my draft pick back. and I'm replacing them with Wisconsin. They weren't picked in our draft last night, a title contender, so I will put Wisconsin in there. Big Ten drought be damned. This is a real final score. I can't believe I'm going to say this. BYU 91, Kansas 57, equaling Kansas's largest loss of the Bill Self era. A worst loss in program history. It's okay. I'm being told by Dagan Hughes it sounds like third worst. So third worst. So Jeff
Still
Borzello
bad.
is wrong. Worst loss in program history as a ranked team versus an unranked opponent. BYU is the only team in the last 7 years to lead Kansas by more than 35 points. It is the second Big 12 loss by 30-plus in the Bill Self era. Terrence Oglesby, what in the world has happened here?
I'm worried. And I think Kansas fans are worried. This is just the transfer portal era has been tough. It's been tough on old Bill. And here's the thing, like, you can't just keep guys around for 3 and 4 years, which is some of their best teams, and he's had throughout the course of his tenure there at Kansas. He's held on to guys. I also think it's time for and Hunter Dickinson went for 12 and 14. I'm ready for this era to be done. I'm ready for the Hunter Dickinson college era to be done. It's time. And then AJ Store just didn't fit. There's a lot going on, more to even break down. It's a weird roster that doesn't fit well together, and it just kind of is what it is at this point. And they got their brains beat in. Now, Provo, not an easy place to play, granted. It's a whole bunch of sober, angry people in that gym, and they're letting you have it. However, BYU, very talented. They're not 34 points better? They're not 34 points better than Kansas. So something's not clicking. So, sometimes it rolls over and gets on top of you, but Kansas right now, 17-9, 8-7, they're not even close to the top of the league in the Big 12. So color me shocked. I thought they would be back. We talked about them in the preseason being a top 5 team in college basketball. That has not been the case, and it's just been a hodgepodge of weird rotations and people on the floor together. So I'm ready for Hunter Dickinson time to be done. I'm ready for DeJuan Harris time to be done. They've had great careers all in their own right, and they've done a lot of good stuff. But for Kansas, I think everybody kind of needs a wash.
Mike,
well,
they were not competitive.
Yeah, I think Well, let me ask you guys this: how many times? And this is what DeJuan Harris said after the Utah game. Anytime I hear we need to play for the name on the front of our jersey and not the name on the back of our jersey, I have never heard someone say that and then also been like, man, they really turned it around after that. I mean, that is clearly something for him to say that there's something beyond probably what we're seeing on the floor. But what we're seeing on the floor, again, is it's Bill Self, who all season, and he's one of the best coaches probably of all time, he's been searching and trying to find a personnel grouping that makes any sort of sense. And I even said it earlier today. I'm like, well, maybe he goes with the 3 bigs and just says, screw it. Like we don't get to the free throw line enough. We don't force turnovers. We don't get offensive rebounds. Like if you don't win in those areas, there is so much strain on your team. And for this Kansas team, their only chance is to be elite defensively. And we didn't see any of that tonight. And it was really a repeat, not of the final score, but of the start to the Utah game where, they lose Madsen twice. They bust a switch. They run in at the ball. They get labeled on a screen. They bust a switch and get a layup over the top. And all of a sudden you're down 13-5. Same thing tonight. And the threes that were rained down from BYU, there's a difference between, hey, you know what? We're there on the catch, hand and face, and these guys are just rising up above us and knocking down shots. This was not that to start this game. This was straight line drives. This was getting to the paint, and this was those inside out catch and shoot threes, which if anybody practices threes, which a lot of people probably watching this have, all 3 of us have at some point in our lives, where do you typically practice threes from? Where does the pass, or if you're on the gun, where does that come from?
Comes from right underneath
the paint, under the basket. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, it's what makes it one of the easiest shots in basketball, no matter where you're shooting it from. But you gave them enough confidence to start the game. The way BYU shoots it, now it doesn't matter if you're there on the catch. It's over. And so they let go of the rope big time in this game. And you got to try to salvage it, because the 3 games that you had this game, I think it was Oklahoma State next, and then there's Cincinnati maybe.
Colorado.
Colorado. And then you finish with the gauntlet of the Big 12, because schedulers, what they're going to say is, hey, here's our preseason number 1 pick in the Big 12. So what are we going to do? We're going to backload their schedule and put 3 really tough games to finish the season. Maybe maybe it makes for a really good race. And it's just not going to be that this year for Kansas, which is unfortunate.
I think it's as embarrassing.
I can't believe they started 4 non-shooters. And DeJuan Harris, as long as he's been in college, still a non-shooter. Like, you put him in the game, you have him, Badunga, Dickinson, Adams, all on the floor at the same time. No space offensively whatsoever. So impossible to get any rhythm. And then how are you going to guard BYU? I know they're big, but like they're skilled and big. I'm
good
ready
offensive rebounding team too.
Yeah.
I mean, and think about it too. Last year's Kansas team, you can look on Ken Pom, and they're number 1 in the country, and assists for field goals made, right? Highest percentage of assisted field goals made. That's a dead giveaway for me that you don't have advantage creators. Because if you had advantage creators, you'd have guys that can get off the bounce, get your game off a little bit, get downhill, get into the paint. It's part of the reason they can't get to the free throw line this year. It plagued them last year. And then this year it's the same thing. You got shooters, like quote unquote shooters. Rylan Griffin, AJ Storr has been up and down shooting the basketball. You at least tried to improve in that area, but you still didn't get advantage creators. And I don't include DeJuan Harris as an advantage creator either, because if everybody goes under on your stuff, you can't create a ton of advantages consistently. So the big lineup to me, what they did tonight was what I was talking about earlier today, which was just, well, we at least have to try to get extra possessions, and that would hopefully be on the glass. But then it's BYU that kicks your butt on the glass to start this game. So it's just I'm at a loss with this Kansas.
But if you're gonna go that big, you got to slow it down to a crawl.
Yeah, you have to win the possession game. Yes,
that's hard to do against BYU because they're very willing to shoot it in the first 6. So it's like I understand like trying something different. We're going to try to match, Demon size for size. So, we're going to put KJ Adams on them. Then we'll be able to match up 4 or 5. I understand the thought, just didn't work. And then what happens is you're on the road. They hit a couple shots and shit snowballs on you, and it gets away from being cute real fast. And I think that's what happened today.
I think that's as embarrassing a loss that Bill Self has taken.
Yep.
Because you're coming off a defeat at Utah. Utah, a non-tournament team, definitely trending in a better direction. And look, Coach Smith's doing a nice job there. But the fact is, you come off that and you say to yourself, all right, like let's do something here personally. Let's bounce back for ourselves. Forget the opponent for a second. And BYU's good. I mean, if there is one takeaway tonight, it's that I wouldn't want to be the 7 having to face a 10th seed at BYU, or in an 8-9 game with BYU. That's not a great reward there. That team can light it up from 3 quickly. Richie Saunders is a stud. I mean, tonight he shot 9 for 13. He had 22 points. An underrated piece of the puzzle is Mawot Mag because of what he could take away defensively. And tonight he gave him 13 points. That's something new, too. They got some players. I'll tell you what, that's a sleeping giant out there in Provo, big picture, because Kevin Young's got A.J. DeBonsa coming. Did you see that crowd tonight? Nope. You think anybody's going in there next year and winning with the money that they're and the talent that they're going to have? Watch out. But this is Kansas. This is Kansas. And if this had happened to Carolina, we would be ripping them to shreds right now. So I'm going to dedicate the same energy to this performance here tonight. That was a joke. You got your ass kicked. You didn't show up for the game. What were the opening minutes of the game? They didn't look like they wanted to be there. And at this stage of the game, for them to be sitting at just above 500 in the Big 12, which, by the way, is not the SEC. Like, it's still a really good league. But this is not like they're going through the gauntlet of the SEC. They got beat by a bubble team tonight by 34 points. That's not competitive. It's humiliating. And for whatever that payroll is, and for whoever's funding that roster, I'd be pissed tonight. I'd be pissed off going to bed.
Think about this, too. I mean, Kansas is different than most programs, right? Like there is a massive like responsibility that you have as a Kansas basketball player to continue to carry on that tradition. I mean, I looked it up today. I'm like, when's the last time they've been haven't been a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament? 2000, 25 years ago. I mean, there's programs that would kill to be a 6 seed right now. And that is like a sky is falling thing for Kansas. And if you're a player for Kansas, I mean, it's one of the worst things in the world to be a part of a really, really great program like that and be the team that isn't meeting the Kansas expectations. Because I'm sure you hear it on social media. I'm sure you maybe hear it around town and, in your own home arena. It's different. And if you're not ready for that, it can gobble you up. And I'm not saying that is what has gobbled this team up, but I can't, completely dismiss the idea of, that probably weighs on guys more than I think we as fans and spectators probably realize. But that doesn't mean that, you're spotted 10 points for being Kansas. You still have to go out there and play hard, like you're saying, John, and play like with some fire. And not to take a page out of DeJuan's book here, but play for the name on your chest. Right? It's just, yeah,
we got to move.
Crazy.
Here's the last stat from Jared Burson. Kansas's 34-point loss to BYU tonight is the largest loss ever by a preseason AP #1 team. The Associated Press has put out a preseason poll every season for 65 years. Embarrassing for the Kansas Jayhawks. Let's stick in the Big 12. Texas Tech goes down. Jamie Dixon's good for a couple of these a year, no matter what team he's got. Down in Fort Worth, they storm the court. It's Sea of Purple. A party all night down in Fort Worth. TCU 69, Texas Tech 66. Texas Tech shot 49%. They shot 36% from 3. But they got out-rebounded a bunch, and they turned the ball over 13 times. And tonight we saw the other side of the Red Raiders. Your thoughts?
15 offensive rebounds in a game that was played in the 60s.
I know, that's hard to believe. That is, you would think 80s there. You really would.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
They missed 23 shots. They got 16 of them. They missed 23 shots. They got 16 of them. Hey, the offensive glass will whip you, especially at home, or especially on the road. Excuse me. Like if you don't have a bunch of guys that are capable of hitting a bunch of shots with a lot of consistency, just go get it. We're at that point now. Look at what St. John's does. Just go get it. Throw it up there. Go get it. If you're going to out physical somebody at home, you can do that. The shocking thing to me, guys, is they out physical Texas Tech, which, JT Toppin's a dude. He ended up with 14 and 11 today. Like they just, you get beat on the road, and TCU 15, 11, 8 and 7. They're sneaky pick to get, they're on the bubble. So this certainly helps them out. Jamie Dixon, you're right. He always seems to find one, but 15 offensive rebounds, and they only missed 23 shots. Like that means you only closed out 8 possessions. Is that what that means? It feels like it. It's probably not accurate, but I'm looking at the stats on. I'm looking at.
I think they missed 23 twos. They missed 11
23
threes.
twos. Yeah, excuse me.
34.
But anyway, regardless,
that's almost 50%. It's almost 50% back on the glass, which if you did that extrapolated for a season, you're the best offensive rebounding team in America. So, yeah. I mean, that's just for context there. But I mean, how about I saw the stat flash on the screen at the end of the game, but that's 6 of 7 now for TCU at home against AP top 10 teams. And I would have to go back and look, but I don't think the one was Kansas earlier in the season. I don't know if Kansas was top 10 at that point. I forget. I know Kansas won that game at TCU, but yeah, it's crazy. And they out physical a Texas Tech team that you feel like is kind of incapable of being out physical. We saw them go into the Fertitta Center at Houston and go and get a win. But I mean, just the end of the game too. I mean, McCaslin rolls the dice, and I think there was maybe a 8-second differential on the shot clock to game clock, and you're thinking, do you foul? It's a 3-point game. What do you do here? And they end up playing it out, and Reynolds hits just a crazy kind of off balance 17-footer to put the game away, and just a wild finish. And The 6 of 7 is still crazy to me because it's not like TCU. TCU's been good. Obviously, they've been to NCAA tournaments the last few years, but it's not like they've just been some juggernaut that is just going to roll over you every time you come into their house. But clearly, if you're a top 10 team over the last 7 meetings, that has certainly been the case.
Yeah, they have a hell of a crowd down there.
They do.
Hell of a crowd.
When it's full. And it does bring us here. We got a break, but you do wonder here. Well, I might ask you guys this in our afters of Big 12 pecking order. What you've got with Houston at 14-1, they rolled again tonight over Arizona State. But then it gets interesting because you got Arizona at 12-3, Iowa State and Texas Tech are matched at 11-4. BYU is in 5th place at 9-6. I mean, I'll tell you what, Coach Young, you want to talk about having a year in year one? He's doing it. After this, we head to Hartford, where things are always interesting, and they were again tonight. This is After Dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. Bet insurance tokens, odds boosts, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two here or there. Be sure to keep your eye out in the app for the Field of 68 specials that we'll be running throughout the season as well. So go download the BetMGM app to sign up today. There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that.
Welcome back to Field 68 After Dark. During the breaks, we're always looking at scores. I mean, I just, Terrence, in 15 seconds here, Boston College beat Virginia Tech 54-36.
Barn burner in Chestnut Hill.
You don't like defense?
Oh, my God. 36 is low. I mean, that
you know
has
how these
to be
Big
the
East guys are, man. If it's not played in the 70s, they don't want to watch.
Well, here we go.
Especially Seton Hall grads. Especially Seton Hall grads.
This game was played in the 70s. UConn had to have it tonight. Had to have it. They fell behind by double digits. With about 11 minutes on the clock. Again, things didn't look great. But at the end of the night, they're 10-5 in the Big East. They're 18-8 overall. They escape from Villanova. They find a way late. Liam McNeely scores 16 of his 20 in the second half. Solo Ball gives him 13 and 6 assists. Terrence Reed was big late. Connecticut beats Villanova 66-59. Mike LaTulip, sometimes when you lose a game like the Huskies did on Saturday, the natural question is, well, how are they going to respond? Well, early on, you could almost feel the after effects of a game like that. But they don't ask how you do it or what happened. They just look at this time of year. Did you win or did you lose? And UConn needed this game. And to their credit, Mike, they closed.
I was fascinated to see how they'd come out in this game. Because it's they had a rough couple days of practice. You know that film was brutal.
Rough doesn't even begin.
You know that guys got absolutely eviscerated. And so what's interesting is when you are, and Tio, I'm sure you've been a part of those film rooms and those practices. Like when you come back out to the court, all you want to do is get back on the court and just play, right? Because then it's just the next game. But, I think what we saw is, you can be so revved up and, hey, we want to play hard and do this and do that you forget to kind of be loose offensively. And you kind of, you almost come out tight offensively. And then you're in front of your home crowd as well. And then defensively, I mean, the times where UConn has faltered this year is when they've beat themselves. And just really to start the game, I mean, the game plan early was We're going to switch everything with Eric Dixon. If solo ball or anybody gets on him, then we're going to come over and we're going to trap. And they blow a switch on Eric Dixon. He hits a three. And then I think the first three hit, McNeely's guarding him. Reed comes over to trap. Dixon throws it out of the trap. Both McNeely and Terrence Reed run away from Dixon. They throw it right back to Dixon for a three. So you're sitting there, you're like, are they going to do this beat themselves thing again? And then, they were able to weather the storm on multiple Nova runs that felt like they were backbreakers. I mean, the 8-0 run in 55 seconds to make it 42-31 was like, oh man, I mean, this could really, they might let go of the rope here. But they didn't. And I thought, McNeely was great on the glass to be able to send himself to the line by creating, collisions in the paint there on the defensive glass. And then Terrence Reed just really kind of lurking behind that Villanova defense and finishing around the rim. I mean, they toughened up at the end of that game, and they needed that big time. So it was good to see. It's good to see it because if Dan Hurley lost that game, after the Seton Hall loss, after the Creighton win and the two rings, it would have gotten loud.
I think one of the big things is Villanova hit a lot of hero shots. You alluded to one where they were Connecticut overcommitted, but Villanova does a lot of one-on-one stuff. Like they're making fantastic plays. We were talking off air, like Wooga Poplar, it was awesome at points today, but eventually that gas tank runs out a lot quicker than a regular car. Because when you're living and dying on some of these really tough shots and trying to do so consistently, it's impossible to do that over the course of 40 minutes. And eventually you get caught up. It was Dixon who started out great. Longino was good in the middle. And then Wooga was good in the second half. And then the last 10 minutes of the game, UConn just kind of stayed the course defensively, went on a 23-6 run. That's just what happened. They got enough stops, and then everything's kind of started to fold into each other. And whenever you have a couple of guys hit shots and you're able to get to the free throw line a little bit, and Liam McNeely starts to gain confidence, like those things can snowball. And I looked at this game kind of as a big picture thing. Like I don't think UConn's going to sit here and make a Final Four. This team's not that good. However, this could very much be a turning point in their confidence right now. 10-5 in league, got a few games left to play. Like they could very well go up to St. John's, give it a hell of a game, and then who knows what could happen, because this is something that you could gain confidence because they needed this win.
Well, you fall behind 53-39 against a Villanova team that's already beaten you.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're thinking, we're going to lose this game. I mean, I think a lot of people were. And they showed their toughness. Liam McNeely's invaluable. He's one of the best 5 or 6 freshmen in all the land. He's that good. And right now, I take him over some of the guys with more upside in the NBA draft because he's a winner. He willed them to win. Again, let's face it, Alex Karaban has hit a wall. He has just not been able to score to the level that they need him to score, and Hassan Diarra has been battling it. It's a seismic moment for UConn season, because if you lose the game, now things are really trending in a bad direction. And by winning the game, now you head into Sunday. You've got to win. You've got time. This was on a Tuesday night. You have time to prepare. St. John's plays in Chicago tomorrow. Now, it's DePaul, but it's still a road game. They have to charter back. They'll get back at 3 o'clock in the morning on Thursday morning. Whereas for you, if you're UConn, you're in your own beds tonight. You practice hard. You get after it hard, and you say, Sunday, we're gonna do this. You already won at Creighton. Why can't you win at the Garden? You're going to have a good fan support there. It's a big win for them. And McNeely, to me, Terrence Reed has to be consistent. When Terrence Reed gives them that, they're a different team. But that's been so hit or miss for them. So if you're Connecticut, had to have it. If you're Villanova and you're a Nova fan right now, I could feel your pain. You scored 6 points in the final 11 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
That's just
Nova aided them. I mean, UConn definitely went and grabbed that game, but Nova aided them a little bit. I mean, what I understand was by the end, I mean, all the confusion you created in the first half was off Dixon setting high ball screens and slipping out and, having them bust switches or even forcing the switch and rolling a small into the paint. And that late in that second half, all Dixon did was post up Terrence Reed. And if you post up Terrence Reed, they're not going to send a second one. They're they're just going to go single coverage and just be able to stay home on the perimeter. So I didn't understand that at all from Villanova when you kind of went away from what was working in the first half there.
All right, T.O., to the SEC. A top 10 team goes down tonight in the Southeastern Conference. Final score, Mississippi State 70, Texas A&M 54. T.O., maybe this is why none of us had Texas A&M last night in our title contenders draft, because offensively at times, if it's not Taylor and Phelps, well, not a lot there. But Chris Jan's team came out and they took Texas A&M to the woodshed. And, oh, by the way, your guy, Josh Hubbard, was fantastic with 25 points. Terrence Oglesby. Could the Bulldogs of Mississippi State be a team that make the second weekend of the NCAA tournament?
They certainly could, because they've got a whole bunch of toughness and a couple of guys that can go get you one. And that's what wins in the NCAA tournament. Now, is Josh Hubbard small, but he's just going to find his small game and put it right in your heart in tournament time. He just fits that kind of guy that goes crazy in the NCAA tournament, and everybody knows who he is by the time it's all said and done. Hey, they're tough. If you're Texas A&M, this is just a loss on the road in the SEC this year. I'm just chalking it up to that. You just didn't have it. You get beaten Starkville. A lot of teams get beaten Starkville. Mississippi State's got dudes too. That's what it comes down to.
Michael?
Yeah, I mean, Hubbard's one of the best I'd say he's one of the best point guards in college basketball that, people don't talk about enough. And he just completely grabbed this game today and started the second half. I mean, it's the way he plays too. He can get it's a catch and shoot three in the corner, and then, he blitzes his guy downhill for a layup, and then he's up top setting and slipping out of ghost screens and catching the ball and dribble flipping, step back in the corner. And there's this chaos to his game, but yet he is more under control and plays on his terms. I'm not kidding you, more than probably anybody in college basketball. He's like a 5-to-1 assist to turnover rate. He delivers passes on time, on target. He had a drift pass in the first half for a guy that's small to be able to wrap the ball around all the way down the baseline, right on the money like that for just like a small armed guy is crazy. And he's so decisive. And you talked about it, T.O. I mean, and Fanta, you talked about it too, like a guy that can have a March moment like that. I mean, he's explosive like Carson Edwards was. And Carson Edwards took that Purdue team to the Elite Eight with his ability to make shots off the bounce and create for his teammates. I don't think that's out of the question for Josh Hubbard in Mississippi State.
All right, toast the night, Terrence Oglesby. Go ahead.
We interviewed him. John Tonje has been a menace lately. He's combined for 63 points over the last two. He's a bad man. My toast goes to John Tonje and his mama.
Michael LaTulip.
Bellarmine, 0-14 in conference and beat the living hell out of Austin Peay tonight by 26.
It's crazy.
I'm going to go with the team that owns the longest winning streak in college basketball. They have won 14 in a row. They are the Akron Zips. They are 13-0 in the Mid-American Conference. Tonight they win 73-63 over Northern Illinois. I'll tell you what, John Gross has done a heck of a job, and he's got Tavari Johnson. He's got Nate Johnson. They combined for 29. Maction, baby, it's real. For Terrence,
love a little Maction. Love a little Maction.
Shout out to those Zips. Thanks for watching After Dark. We'll see you tomorrow night.
We're live. It's the afters. Hit the chat.
I'm not getting close to any bear.
My career high on the court is 28. It's the afters. John Fanta, Terrence Oglesby, Mike LaTulip. I'm with you for a few minutes to wrap up the fun night of college hoops. Dagan Hughes is with us. Dagan, what do you got for us?
Gentlemen, hello. Fanta, we're going to go where you kind of mentioned. With the Big 12 a little bit earlier. We're going to hit on, obviously, Houston, Iowa State kind of had some big wins tonight, but just kind of your thoughts on the Big 12 picture and kind of how it's going to play out, guys.
Well, I mean, Houston's 14-1, and I believe now they're 29-2 in their last 31 league games. So until somebody takes the crown from them, Saturday's going to be awesome. Saturday is going to be outstanding when they host Iowa State. I mean, that should be game days heading there. I think it's the marquee game of the day. It's cool to have Houston and Iowa State be your marquee game because the two teams are just that good. Defensively, that's just going to be a war. It's going to be which guard or set of guards can emerge. I mean, T.O., that is a get off the bus and you better have packed your helmet type of game, because it's going to be physicality from the very start. But I think Houston ends up winning the Big 12 again. I when I look at this league, it's got Arizona, Iowa State, Texas Tech. I'd still give Iowa State the lean over Arizona as a team overall. But, man, I give Tommy Lloyd a heap of credit for being 12-3 in the league. Last night, T.O., that was a big bounce back for them. I mean, you come off the loss to Houston, you're thinking, how are we going to handle this? And what do? They go to Baylor and win by 7 in Waco, less than 48 hours to prep.
Not overly impressed with Baylor, but that's for another time. However, way to get back on the horse there. Good for you. Arizona, I did not see this coming. I thought it was a roster that Caleb Love was still going to Caleb Love, and they didn't have quite the size as they've had in past years, and it was going to be a little bit harder. But they figured it out. Credit to Tommy Lloyd. Houston's going to win this league. They're 2 games ahead of everybody else. And at this point in the season, there's got to be a monumental mess up. Not monumental, but you got to go on a losing streak, which is possible. You look at their schedule coming up. I mean, Iowa State, Texas Tech, their next 2. After that, it gets pretty easy with Cincinnati and Kansas. Think about what I just said. It gets pretty easy with Cincinnati and Kansas. No, I just if I had to pick somebody, it's obviously going to be Houston. Arizona being this good, I did not see happening, and good for them. Good for them. They've figured some things out. They're guarding at a high level, and they still have, when good Caleb Love is good Caleb Love, he can get you to a Final Four. He's shown that.
I mean, there's so much talk about what Duke is doing to the ACC, and then everybody goes back and says, well, it's the ACC and this and that. I mean, look what the hell Houston's doing to the Big 12 right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. And the fact that, they're 14-1 in conference. Their 1 loss is in overtime. Could have had that game if Juwan Roberts, finishes around the rim, and then you'd be 15-0 at this point. And then your previous 2 losses that were back in November were also in overtime. So, I mean, when we talk about Auburn and when we talk about Duke and Florida and Alabama, I mean, I just think, at what point do we include Houston in that conversation? I think they do such a good job of removing inefficiencies from their game. I've talked about this before where, hey, you know what their bad shooters don't do? Shoot. You know what their small guards don't do? Try to finish them around the trees. They shoot 40% from 3 because their 3 guys that are good shooters are the guys that shoot, and they rebound and they get to the free throw line. And so they have possession control. We talk about that. I mean, they play at their pace and their pace only. No one's catching them in this league. I would be stunned if anybody caught them. But, talking about Arizona as well, I mean, Henry Vasar is a guy that played 7 minutes a game last year and has been a bit of a revelation for that Arizona front court. When you have injury earlier in the season, but they've, that's just, again, we talked about Michigan State earlier, and those are 2 completely different teams, Michigan State and Arizona, but there's continuity with Arizona. And that's something where, when we look at preseason rankings, clearly T.O. bet on that with Michigan State. I mean, we should continue to remind ourselves that in the offseason. When you look at, they got Lewis back, they got Love back, they got Bradley back. They added some pieces in the front court. Maybe we should have been a little bit higher on Arizona than we were preseason. But I agree too. I mean, Caleb Love is as combustible as there is in college basketball. And if he gets it going, and I think he's better insulated with the guys around him this year than maybe in previous years. But when he gets it going, man, all bets are off. I mean, this team can absolutely make a Final Four.
Dagan, before I get right back to you, Bill Self after the game, quote, "We need to get away from each other. I'll tell you that point blank," end quote. Self said that the trip out there to Utah and BYU did not go as planned. He hoped it would be a bonding trip, but it didn't turn out like that at all. Wow. Kansas
not a whole lot of kumbaya happening in Lawrence.
Listen to this now. Kansas will get back at 5 a.m. Self doesn't want to see his team until Thursday. Wow. Dagan.
All right, fellas. So we're going to go to the bubble here a little bit. 2 teams on our bubble this past week. Oklahoma being one, fell at Florida. Just your thoughts on that game, and do the Sooners have a chance now to get in?
It's over.
I sniffed this out 2 months ago. I'll just say I'm not throwing myself a parade here, but
You're not
when
pulling
they
a
were
Doster?
11,
You're not pulling a Doster?
no. But I will say, John Henson was giving me grief because I didn't have Oklahoma as a tournament lock when they were 11-0, and I said every year somebody is fooling us, and it happened to be Oklahoma last year too, who started 10-0 and then finished 10-12 or 10-12 to finish the season. And it's not like Oklahoma's a bad team. They're not. They're just gobbled up in a really, really tough conference. And I don't know. I think they might end up on the wrong side of the bubble because at some point, I mean, we can say the tough conference stuff, but I mean, Mizzou's found ways. Mississippi State found ways. I mean, like you can't finish 4-14 or however many conference games they end up playing and be like, well, why didn't we get in? You got to win some games.
Yeah, you look at their schedule coming up. Mississippi State, we just talked about how good they are. And Jeremy Fears and Josh Hubbard, you want to talk about a welcome to college moment. You better try to stay in front of him. Jeremy Fears is fast. I'm not sure he's Josh Hubbard fast. Kentucky after that, Ole Miss, Mizzou, Texas. It ain't looking good. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of this is now Florida's 23-3, and they could just take you out back and beat you down. And that's what they did in this game.
They could win a national championship.
They absolutely could. And
that's
Walter
why Micah
Clayton
Handlockton had to come back. Like getting Micah Handlockton back after he broke his leg and he's sitting out the entire year and decides to forego his red shirt to play the last 7 games of the season. It's because I think they can win a national championship.
But you know what else? They don't turn the ball over.
Right.
Like they don't turn the ball over. They can make shots in waves. Clayton's an All-American. They're phenomenal. They're phenomenal. Oklahoma's 3-10 in their league. I'm sorry. If you're 7 under 500 in your conference, and I know people are like, conference record doesn't matter. And get out of here. You're not a tournament team. It does matter, and you can't be that bad. I don't care what league you're in. It ain't getting any brighter. Oklahoma is out. So long, farewell. Dagan.
All right, so Oklahoma in our last 4 in as of yesterday. Xavier, first 4 out. They get a big win against Butler. Are they in?
They're coming along like a counted out horse that broke its leg at one point in its life. Here comes Sean Miller down the end of the track, Steeler fan and all. I'm telling you what, they are starting to play better basketball. Now, their conference schedule was front-logged. So there was a little bit of like, okay, we're down, we're dead. They're dead. We're done with them. Remember, they have a bubble win over Wake. Like they have a head-to-head win over Wake Forest. They went and won at Marquette. That's a Q1A win. They beat UConn, who entered the night with a net of, let's see here, I know T.O. hates the net, 35. They should be UConn's biggest fan. They should be rooting for Connecticut to get back into the top 30 so that becomes a quad 1 win. If Xavier wins out, they're 13-7 in the Big East. That entails them beating Creighton in Cincinnati on March 1st. Yeah, if they win out and they beat and if they beat Creighton at home March 1st, they will have punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament. That is my belief. I don't think a Xavier team that has no bad losses, they don't have a bad loss, that beat a bubble team in Wake head-to-head that would own wins over Marquette, UConn, and Creighton, I don't think they're going to get left out.
I don't know what a bad loss is anymore, so I'm not even going to – losing to Georgetown is not a bad loss. Losing to – I mean, what do you think, John? No?
Well, Georgetown –
For a tournament picture, I'm not taking away from what Cooley has done. So Cooley has turned this thing around, and you see positive traction. However, with the record that they have, I mean, Georgetown 15-10 – 6-8 in the Big East. It's been a much improved, but for tournament seeding purposes and for getting in the tournament, I don't think I consider that a good loss. That's kind of my only.
I agree with that. Here's what I would say. With a bubble this soft,
true.
Xavier's
True.
got 17. Xavier has 17 wins. I will say this. Here's if a 21 win or 22 win Xavier is denied the NCAA tournament, the Big East needs to schedule an emergency meeting immediately because that's Atlantic 10 like.
Well,
if you've won 22, I'm just
here's
telling
kind of
you.
where
I mean, I'm just
yeah. Well, here's the thing: they have to beat Creighton. Have to beat Creighton.
I agree with that.
And
I agree with that.
And you have to have 3 non-losses against Seton Hall, Butler, and Providence. They're non-losses. So if they don't beat Creighton, they got to win 2 in the Big East tournament. Fair?
I agree with that. I agree with that. All that you said.
If
what
they
I will
beat
say is
Creighton,
that yes,
I think they got to win 1 in the Big East tournament.
But all that,
See, I don't
all
know.
that is just to all that's just to feel good, though, right? Because there's still all the other stuff going on with the other teams on the bubble, right? So, that is to beating Creighton, obviously, and that is for you to go to Selection Sunday saying, you know what, we feel pretty good about being in. Now, there's obviously all this other stuff that has to happen in order for you to feel good or not feel good because there's other teams and other factors at play. But yeah, I mean, it's this team. I mean, Ryan Conwell, Maddox, McKnight, and Swain's been really good for them as well. You could see it earlier in the season, right? The Marquette game, the UConn game. You're like, okay, they're competing. They're in these games. And then, when I had talked about them on New Year's Eve, and I was like, hey, this is a tournament team to me. And then they turn around and lose to Georgetown the next game. That was tough. But I just think Sean Miller is such a good coach. They did the mic'd up thing with it was him and Mike Anderson, I think, which was
and he blew the doors off Mike Anderson.
Not a fair fight. Yeah, it was not a fair fight on the mic'd up. FS1 mic'd up. That was not a fair fight there. But you can just tell, Sean Miller is so engaged, and it was so cool to watch because it was like, go ahead.
Do not put them in the first. If that team gets in, they are a candidate to be that next first 4 to second weekend type team. They're that type. They are made up like that because Conwell, Fremantle, Maddox get hot and get rolling, and Swain is hitting shots. They have shot makers Xavier
Foster's 42% this year. Yeah.
Yeah. Xavier in 2017 made the Elite Eight as an 11. And this kind of came, and then it was like here's the funny thing about the tournament. I think there's times you'd rather be an 11 than an 8 or 9, especially this year. Well said. Dagan, anything else?
Yes, we have one question in the chat I want to throw to you guys. It's from Albert. He wants to know, are you guys worried about Kentucky obviously missing some key pieces?
What does Prince Albert have to say?
Oh, God.
Terrence. Albert's asking
are you worried about Kentucky?
Yeah, Terrence, are you worried or not?
Lamont Butler, I'm worried if they don't have guards. If Lamont Butler's not playing, I'm worried. I'm worried because, Mike, I think it was you who said this the other day. They don't have anybody who can break you down. There's no high ball screen. Go get one. Not even for yourself, but somebody else. They don't have that. It's not there. It's non-existent. They have a bunch of really good players, but there's nobody who can create something for somebody else. And their 5-out zoom action, backdoor, but basically expanded Princeton that they're doing, everybody does it, 1. And 2, if you don't have a guard that can get something there quick, it makes it really hard. If Lamont Butler isn't playing, I'm worried. If he is playing, not as worried.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you don't have point guard play, and not only do they not have point guard play, they don't have point guards. They don't have Kirk Ariza or Lamont Butler, and so yeah, you're right, Tio. And I talked about this before. When this version of the Kentucky team gets down, it's really hard to generate quick offense because they don't have a guy that you can just go say, hey, high ball screen, read and react, play off of it. Let's score in 5 to 6 seconds. Yeah. It's come down it's, delay action to Amari Williams, dribble handoff, short roll, catch, skip. I mean, there's just, and it's great. It's great when things are popping, you got your full cast of characters and, you can generate easy looks. But when it's not, like I was looking at Texas the other day and it's crazy. It's Kentucky, but I'm also sitting there going like, Texas can't lose this game. You know what I mean? Which is crazy to say, but I think it speaks to how undermanned Kentucky is from just really important positions that I think serve as kind of the engines for that team. So, Kerr was great when he was in there just with pace, and then Lamont is kind of like a steadying force and able to pick up the ball and be, kind of your point of attack defensively. So they just got to get healthy. If they get healthy, then yeah, sure. I mean, this can be a team that makes a run, but sometimes it's all about just that, just getting your guys back. And then even when you get them back, the timing of it, what's the rhythm like? There's going to be some rust and getting reacclimated again. Because this isn't a team that was playing together for 4 years that had a guy go out, then now you come back and it's just everything's like riding a bike again. You built this up with a brand new team, had guys go out. Now you got to come back and try to build it up in time to get some continuity and make a run in March. So that's what it's going to come down to for Kentucky.
Here's the scary part is that it's not a team that's built to come from behind. And especially without the guard. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of like, obviously better, but like Virginia a couple of years ago where they were good and they were up towards the top of the ACC. But if somebody got up on them by 10 and they couldn't really create anything quickly, like they're screwed. It's kind of the same ordeal with Kentucky right now because they have to just inch away and inch away and inch away. There's not an ability to make this 6-point run, 8-point run, something like that without those guards doing some stuff for those guys.
They got to rely on that defense too, which has escaped them at times this year.
Yep.
For the majority of the year. And here's the thing. Otego away and Kobe Brea need those players to set them up. Look at the Texas game. Brea can't play without a really good playmaker. It's nothing against him. It's just his role on the team. He shot 0 for 6 from the floor, 0 for 4 from 3, and away had 20 points, but it took him 18 shots to get there. They are missing their two most important pieces. They're Jackson Robinson and Lamont Butler. Robinson's a guy who came with Pope. He's shown us some moments before he now gets banged up. And Butler's a guy who's made one of the biggest shots in Final Four history. You're without those pieces, and your defense is come and go. It's hard to compensate for that. And that's what they're having trouble with. And we'll see when they take on Vanderbilt.
And can you stay on the 3 line? Can you stay on the 3 line? Because if you go to the 4 or 5 line, like I think it's gonna be really tough to.
I agree with that. And by the way, it leaves you susceptible to an upset. If there's a big difference between the 3 line and the 5 line, huge difference. Even the 4 line. I mean, I'm going to tell you both right now. Whoever Yale or the Ivy League representative plays in the tournament, I'm sorry, I am picking against you. I'm not getting bid again. I didn't get bid last year. I'm the only person who picked Yale, the only one in the world. Terrence didn't even pick them. Yeah, that's going to do it for us. The last thing I'm going to use
and there's your answer, Prince Albert. We are worried.
What Bill Self said tonight, we need to get away from each other. I'll tell you that point blank. I might print that on a T-shirt and give it out to the whole crew at the Final Four because that's exactly how we all feel when we are through the week at the Final Four after about 5 straight days of at Goodman Hoops chat and takes and everything in between. That does it for us. For T.O., for Michael LaTulip, I'm John Fanta. Thank you for watching. Thanks to Dagan Hughes. We'll see you tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Eastern.